Hi, welcome to class. We're the only two right now, but the other ones will show up eventually, right? I hate my life. I hate my life. A Professor Sunreis Productions! Hello class, Professor Sunreis here. In today's class, we're gonna take a look at a replay analysis of me playing Brave Virtual with his Spright Frogs. Spoiler alert, I'm maybe gonna switch to the deck, but more on that later, or I'll give you updates on that. So, without further ado, don't forget to like and subscribe and leave some feedback down below, and let's get right into the replay. So here we are in the replay. We are up against Blue Bolt's time at 747 rating. Opening hand on their part, by the way, they win the die roll. Let's pause here real quick. Opening hand is Swap Frog, Smashers, Blue, Red plus Light Stage. And we are on Neon, Enchantress, Quinglong, Lulu, Laulau. So both of our hands are pretty good. Let's see how this plays out. They start out with a Light Stage, of course, a really good card right now. Forcing one set card and getting your level 2 on the field without committing to a normal summon is pretty strong right now. Definitely a very interesting tech into a lot of different matchups for a Spright deck, so definitely don't sleep on this engine. Especially with Mystic Mine and Terraforming having like an additional consistency into both engine in form of extenders and of course into Ghost Second cards in the form of Mystic Mine. So they summon the red, they summon blue, so now they even have hand trap protection, which we of course don't really care about because we are not on any hand traps. Blue search the Jet search out the starter. Let's just see the basic Spright board, of course, being established here right now, especially because they still have the normal summon and Swap Frog. They have the Smashers hard drawn, so they even have follow-up. This is definitely what you want to see as a Spright player going first. The only thing which would have been better, of course, would be one like defensive card. But you can have everything, I guess. Let's fast forward here a little bit. The Swap Frog sends Swap Frog. Wait, Swap Frog sends Swap Frog? Doesn't really do a lot, I guess. You have the hand trap protection. They do skip the Gigantic Blight. I don't know. It basically doesn't make any difference here, just because a nip would come out no matter what. So it doesn't really do anything apart from giving you more resources in the deck because you don't just summon out something unnecessary out of the deck. They have access to everything they want no matter what, so it doesn't do anything at all here. They do have everything. They have their rank 2 XCs, the number 65 Gin Buster. This could also be the Pit Knight, the new Link 2, which is definitely very interesting. And a Toad, plus a Red, plus Smashers starter. Definitely everything which one could ask for. Draw for turn is a Lulu. Definitely not something we want to pick up here. So here we have quite a few possibilities to crack this board. We do have one Monster Negate, one Monster Negate and Destroy, one Omni Negate. We do anticipate a Smashers here, but we can't really have a way to play around that. So we decided to go for a normal summon. End of main phase. This does force out a starter if they have the Pixies. And because there's so many Monster Negates, I kind of have to go for it. And we die to one Smashers no matter what, basically. So we just think, okay, maybe they don't have it. And hope for the best. And if they don't have this is definitely the correct play. I think here we go battle phase. They do summon the blue with the starter, okay, and blue searches for. Let's see what they search for. It just smashes on the on the Neon, and that's it. And they search the Pixies, which of course doesn't do anything at this point, so might have well just saved it. So here at this point we activate the Quinglong. In hindsight, you probably should activate the Quinglong first because now this does have way more pressure on the opponent than it had without using the Toad. Without using the normal summon, but Toad on the Quinglong is game for us because we have no way of cracking the board here. We could have used Enchantress first, but Enchantress would have just gotten negated by Red or the XZs. So nothing really we can do there apart from activating Quinglong first. But then again, it is definitely something you might want to Toad negate just because it's one of the few ways for us to actually get something on the board for the virtuals to stick. So Goes game 2, the opponent is on Beaver, starter, Dark Ruler, enemy controller, starter, and we are on Lulu, Neon, Scythe, Sanctum, GG. Definitely not what you want to see in these two, but it is fine. We still have a combo through a hand trap or two, and we have just some discard fodder at that point. And this hard drawing Scythe makes it so that we have access to snow, which of course is always helpful, especially against cards like Dark Ruler or enemy controller, where the opponent could maybe try to crack our Scythe lock. Here, of course, we always start with the GG Sonic Quinglong, just in case there is a DD Crow on the horizon, making it so that we have the ability to play around one DD Crow, because Lulu then can, instead of setting up the Kowloon, we can just go for the Sand Trap at Kowloon play. So here we activate Quinglong. Doesn't really matter if we do it first or afterwards. Why am I not adding anything? We are adding the Lala, of course. Basic combo, of course, if you have GG Lulu, you always want to add Lala. If you have Lily plus Lulu, you always want to add GG. That's basically how it goes most of the time. Okay, let's see what we did here. We did Lulu on the Neon, sending a trap, adding a Kowloon. We of course sent the Chuchi here. We want to go for the Crystal Wing route against Spright, just because a lot of times they don't play the Super Poly target, and they are on quite a few hand traps, depending on the variant, of course. Here we go for the Crystal Wing route just to protect ourselves from a hand trap or two. So Chucha on the GG, make it level 6, go into the Tzolk'in. Coral Dragon gives us a draw. Of course, we take those every day of the week. Draw is an emergency teleport. That's definitely a good pickup. Set the Kowloon, activate Tzolk'in. From here on out, we are pretty insulated through hand traps, because a lot of them would have come onto the early names, and everything which comes now can be kind of hit by the Crow, by the Crystal Wing. So no Ghost Spell, for example. Stuff like that, yeah. Or Vela would have been forced out here already. No Ash on an Enchantress if the opponent is waiting for that. So now here we do activate the emergency teleport. Reason for that is that we want to send the trap with Lala, because we already have access to Neon, and this way we will be able to get the full board, because we will revive Gigi, send Janwoo, activate Neon. And then here we go with Neon and GG into Charge Warrior, recycling our Chuchu, which is definitely something very important now with mine being everywhere. You really want to get your Chuchu into the deck again after the first turn combo. Charge Warrior, draw into another emergency teleport. That's again a pretty good pickup. Charge Warrior and Lala go into Beatrice. Pretty standard from here on out. Nothing really too major apart from the emergency teleport on the getting the Lulu so that we can send the trap, send Enchantress, activate Enchantress, search Ride, get Adventure. Here it is kind of tricky because we do have the Janwoo. We still need to get the Scythe into the graveyard, so we just use the Adventure to get the Griffin, get the Scythe in the graveyard. We misclick here and send the Griffin, then summon Griffin, effect Adventure, Draco back, and from here we can make space for our combo by synchroning into the Baron, and then we can use the Janwoo to get ourselves a Lulu, pitching the Draco back, and then you could argue, you could make a point here to pitch the emergency teleport and keep Draco back. It's definitely something to take into consideration, but overall, I feel like the emergency teleport will always have value next turn, especially because if the opponent breaks our board, it's probably just with the Zeus wipe, and then we want to have a way to get a virtual on the field at all costs, especially because we don't have the Quinglong into the grave because we wanted to go for full combo. I feel like it is the correct play, because if the opponent Zeus wipes our field, the Fateful will be gone, and then Draco back is just not any value at all. So here we end on a Spell Trap Negate, Baron, Beatrice, and Crystal Wing with Scythe already in the graveyard, so we are free to to send the Snow with the Beatrice, which of course is always cool. Draw for turn for the opponent is a terraforming. In draw phase, they do decide to activate a starter. So starter is definitely a very interesting point of interaction. You have three options. You have a Baron, which of course is really good because Baroning the starter makes it so that you get value out of the Omni Negate, because you will of course in Stamper phase tag out This makes it so that you get most out of your value. You have a Dawn Dragster, which is just as good because it is a spell trap negate. Thing is, you will have the Dawn Dragster on the board after you resolve your normal combo. Therefore, it is usually better to use the Baron on this point, or you could Crystal Wing the body on field, because a lot of times monster negates are just not as prevalent at stopping your combo, but there's still Crow, there's still Ghost Bell, there's Gamma, so it is something to keep in mind. Arguably, it is the correct play to use Baron on the body on the field, but then again, they could just leave the body because they want an extra body, and then you kind of want to negate the starter. So we decide to use the Baron on that. It's probably better in hindsight to use it on the body, like I said. This also plays around the Gamma, which some people are on, so this is definitely something to keep in mind. They're going to use another starter. At this point, I decide to chain Beatrice and send the Snow. They summon the blue. Not the blue, the Jet. Jet then can then search Smashers. So I think we're gonna Crystal Wing here, or maybe we'll just Chucha. We will just Crystal Wing. They cannot use Gamma anymore, so Crystal Wing lost a lot of its applications. And now we just need to play around stuff like DD Crow, but the enemy controller on the Jet, targeting probably the Baron. This we can, of course, Dawn Dragster, which is really good. There are definitely more spell traps out to Baron Cypherlock right now than their monster. Especially DD Crow, a lot of people will maybe side it out. But overall, I think there are more spells in Imperm, enemy controller versus just Gamma and Crow, and I think a lot of more people are on enemy controller and Imperms than they are on Crow and Gamma. So definitely keep that in mind. So now we negated the enemy controller. They have no more interaction for our play. So now we use Baron. Summon Scythe, effect Scythe. We can still dodge an Imperm. With that, we are Gamma protected, so there's basically nothing apart from Droplet the opponent could do here. Of course, this board also played around Super Poly quite effectively, because if the opponent decides to Super Poly Baron and Crystal Wing, we are still left with a Snow Negate and Spell Trap Negate and a Chucha. So that's still 3 disruptions through Super Poly, and we played around hand traps the most effective way. So in my opinion, it is correct to go for this route. So in main phase 1, the opponent is on a starter, a Dark Ruler, and a Terraforming. Dark Ruler is useless here, so they just decide to activate the Terraforming, get the Mystic Mine. So they can normal summon the Beaver. We have no problem with that, because of course the opponent is locked from the extra deck. Here they try to go for the extra deck. I'm telling them they cannot do this. And they just admit defeat because we still had the one out to the Mystic Mine, and of course we still have the Snow. I don't think we had 3 cards banished, but if the opponent had another Mystic Mine, we could chain the Snow to it, banish a few Virtuals out of the graveyard, and making it so that the next turn we still have the Chucha life to out the opponent's board. So this is definitely something very good to keep in mind. A lot of times you want to have the 4 in grave if you can go for it, but depending on the amount of cards you have access to, you could either end on 4 and have the Chucha in the banish pile, making it so that you're very susceptible to like a Cosmic or something like that. Or you can have 3 plus Snow in the graveyard, making it so that you can just chain the Snow on the second Mystic Mine, so that you have an out to that. Because if the opponent Mystic Mines you twice, it's usually not like that they have any sort of real engine after that, so it's definitely free to just use the Snow to get the banish for the Chuchas going. So, game 3, the opponent is on Swap Frog, Mystic Mine, a Pointer, Jet, and Blue. This is definitely a very strong hand against Prosperity, Enchantress, Kowloon, Dark Ruler, Droplet. Also a very good hand. If you see Prosperity as a virtual name, this is a very solid hand. And with Dark Ruler and Droplet, we even have a way to play around a Pointer, because there's like no clean way to answer that card. So this is definitely very good. So Swap Frog, send nothing to play around a Gamma, and then use Blue to get red. So summon red, summon Jet, Jet Search. Let's see, here you search the starter. That's arguably the best, because you want to get the engine alive, and especially post side. You really need it with a Pointer. You have an answer to like blow out cards, and that makes it so that the end board usually is strong enough. So I think I would have searched the starter here as well. They immediately go into the elf. They decide to skip the gigantic again. Definitely questionable, but then again, the opponent will like the virtual deck will definitely not have that. Like just a standalone nib against that, so it's definitely good to do that. Okay, now they go for the gigantic. But this just feels so weird play. I don't know why you wouldn't go for the gigantic first. Then again, it doesn't really matter. This does leave... Oh, okay, I guess this matters because this does leave Xyz on the board for the red negate. So I guess it makes sense to some degree to go for it like that. Ronan, banish, swap, go for Toad, set to pass. We draw for turn a virtual name, so this is definitely a perfect pickup here. Lulu would have been better, but we can't have everything, right? In draw phase, they decide to appoint her, showing us a Mystic Mind, which definitely heavily will influence how you want to crack this board, because this is an auto win into a not really good established board of basically any deck. So we definitely have to keep that in mind. The Dark Ruler, the pointer on the Dark Ruler is definitely fine. So here are quite a few lines, and I will just talk about how we go. So we decide to use Prosperity here. Thing is, of course, the normal play would be use a spell, and then Droplet, send spell and Enchantress to negate Toad plus red. Thing is, they can just use a Toad to negate it. Making it so that they, like the most impactful spell, like a Prosperity for 6 or like a Kowloon, the opponent will just be able to negate it. So I decided to just go for Prosperity for 3. We have the luxury of doing that because we already have everything in hand, making them think twice about negating that, making me lose less resources in the extra deck in the meantime. And if they don't negate this, we can just chain Droplet, which they don't. Very questionable if you negate here or not. And even if they negate, we can just still chain Droplet, send these two, and we got rid of all of the disruption on the board. Then there's just one starter left for a spell negate. So we chain the Droplet, send Prosperity, send Enchantress, and negate Toad plus the red. Reason for that is because Elf can summon something back here, but they would have to use the Toad for that, use the Toad for it, and we can play around that. Our thing is pretty gnarly, our Prosperity, giving us a Lulu. Arguably, maybe Elf is the better play, but at that point, they will always have one negate left. It doesn't really matter if it's a monster negate or an Omni negate at that point. So they decide to use the starter here and chain the Elf, which is definitely a questionable play. Because you really want to use Toad to negate, get itself into the graveyard, and then use Elf to revive at some point in the combo. They decide to summon the Carrot, use the blue effect, and they will get Pixies. Maybe they thought I would have a lot of pressure and not too much like of disruption against them, because I will struggle against the board, so they just wanted to get as many resources as possible. But then again, you can just wait for that. Red doesn't negate anything here, and so you have a lot of bodies which just don't do anything, so you can just wait with this with the Carrot summon, and then later on you could use Elf to get a Toad back, because you can send the Toad with the Carrot, for example. So here we decide to use the Enchantress, get right, and here we do the big decision to sacrifice the Kowloon for the spell trap negate. My opinion, the correct play, because we will still have access to Chuchu with the Lulu, and right is way more important because we need to get rid of this board, and the Brave Engine, of course, will heavily help us against that. So we activate the right, normal summon Lulu, effect Adventure, get Draco back. We don't have the cards in hand because of the Appointer, of course, to really get rid of everything here, because we to play the full Brave Engine, I mean, because we are just lacking one card, so we can only get the level 4 body plus the bounce, but this is still more than enough. So Lily on the Lulu here, send Quinglong, send Chucha. Of course, we side out the one Janwu, so this is all we can send here. But there's more than enough. So we sent the use Quinglong here, very important, but overall I decided there are only like two options, Lau or Lulu. Lau will give us more bodies, but the bodies overall just don't do enough here, so I decided to just get the Lulu because there's still the Mystic Mine and we need an out for that. Pitch Draco back on the token. They decide to use Toad here now to so that they can get the resources back. Like I said, I think you could have played this better if you go on the Kowloon negate with Carrot, and then you use the Toad, you use the Ride, and then you chain Elf to you can get back the Toad. I guess you can only negate the Draco back then at that point. So maybe it is the correct play to do it like that. Now that I think about it, Draco back on the Elf, get rid of that. So now you can just run over all of them basically. Pixies, we decide to read it here because we weren't sure if it negates, if it also increases defense, which it does, of course. So now we use the Lulu on the Lily. Game plan here is to get rid of many resources as possible and then establish hard to get rid of bodies. So we decide to go for a Synchro 10 route here. Of course, we hard think Barone here does get rid of one with a pop and then runs over the other thing, but then we only have one negate and they still have a Ronin Toad in grave, which is definitely a very real card because it is like basically 2 level 2 bodies and it's hard to really get rid of them. So we use Chucho and Lulu here to make level 6 and then actually go into the Changing. Definitely a card which comes up less and less, but it's so important to still play it in my opinion. Then use these two to go for Vermilion Dragon Mech, which is also coming up very infrequently, but it's definitely a very decent card in this exact scenario because it does banish a card, making it so that we can still trigger the Changing. So we banish the Lulu, just destroy the Carrot, and then we use the Changing to banish Red and Ronin, because these are the one-offs, and then they don't have any access to Red anymore, probably. Then we use the Adventure to just send the Enchantress for the next turn. We run over this, playing around the Pixies, because Changing does decrease the opponent's attack and defense, making it so that we actually have the ability to play around the Pixies and still get rid of all the level 2 bodies the opponent has. Here we explain the Changing effect, because I think they forget it. Then we Chucha set, we have 2 banished, so we definitely have that. So in any case, depending on the top deck, we have everything which we need. The opponent doesn't have a Ronin, so we can just use the our Chucha on the Swap Frog, getting rid of the level 2 access. So even with the Spright top deck, they can't do anything. If the opponent Mystic Mines us, we are only on 2 bodies, so we don't really care about that. They can't Mystic Mine lock us. So getting rid of the opponent's normal summon will get them completely out of their Brave Engine unless they open exactly Starter. And then we still have, if they Mystic Mine us, we still have a Qinglong in the graveyard. So then we can just, with our Chucha, recycle Qinglong Chucha. And next turn we use the Qinglong, banishing it so that we have Lulu Qinglong in banish pile again to get rid of the Mystic Mine in the opponent's turn. So everything apart from Starter isn't win here. And if they have the Starter, they just have it, I guess. And there's not a lot you can do about that. So we decide to use the Chucha here. No effect on the opponent. We use Chucha. You could argue that you just Chucha the Changing to get rid of like a Toad here. But at that point, doesn't really matter. They decide to change the enemy controller, getting rid of getting our Changing, but this doesn't do a lot because of course they can run over the Dragon Mech, but it doesn't really accomplish a lot. This is just a body at that point. So they decide to stick the Mystic Mine. We get our Changing back, and at this point it's just cleanup. We use Qinglong to get the Lulu. We have Chucha alive now. Get rid of Dark Ruler, Chucha on the Mystic Mine. And from here on out, there's just easy cleanup. The opponent doesn't have any cards left in the play at all. So we can easily clean this up here. Lulu on the Chucha, getting everything which we need. And the duel is over. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Definitely it was a very intense game 3. Always keep that in mind. It's not really the most important stuff to like have hard negates. Getting rid of the opponent's resources while cracking a board is definitely very important. Don't sleep on a Ronin Totem in the grave. It's still like 1 to 2 bodies, which is definitely worth just 1 Omni Negate. And the Changing traded just so well into everything. Playing around the Pixies, getting rid of graveyard resources, having a hard to out body for them, especially next to the Dragon Mech, because if they can't really run over the Dragon Mech with lots of their cards, so they have to like out up to different cards in the form of the XZs, for example, which bounces, so that forces the opponent into weird plays, making it so that you will have an easier time on the crackback. Also, Chucha is insane against Mystic Mine, who would have thought? So, hope you guys enjoyed this replay. Class is dismissed, you guys are free to leave, and Professor Sunreis out. Peace.